Excel formulas let you summarize the data contained in your worksheets, which helps you discover important information about your business. In this movie, I will show you the three main ways to create a formula in Excel: by typing, by using the controls on the Formula tab of the ribbon, and by using the Insert function dialog box. I will also show you how to refer to cells on the current worksheet, another worksheet in the same workbook, and a worksheet in another workbook. The first sample file I'll work with is the Create workbook, and the second, which I'll reach by pressing Alt-Tab, is the External Excel workbook. You should open both files, and you can find them in the Chapter 1 folder of your exercise files collection. With that in mind, I'll press Alt-Tab to move back to the Create workbook. This workbook summarizes the number of visitors that have come through a facility. I have an estimated revenue per visitor, the sum of the visitors for the year, and then also projected revenue, estimated cost to replace a 10% loss, and an estimate based on a lower cost per visitor. Let's say that I want to calculate my projected revenue based on my visitors and my projected revenue per visitor. To do that, I will multiply the values in cell D3 and D6. So I'll click in cell D9, which I already have selected, type an equal sign to start my formula, and then I'll click cell D3, and then an asterisk to multiply, and then I'll click cell D6, and press Enter. And there I have my projected revenue. Now let's say that I want to estimate the cost to replace a 10% loss in visitors. The question is how much it costs to acquire a new visitor to replace any that are lost. That value is on the Acquisition Cost worksheet, so I'll click that tab now, and you can see that we'll be using the value in cell B1, which is $47. So I'll go ahead and click back on the Summary Worksheet tab. So the cost to replace a 10% loss based on my visitors and the cost that I showed you on the other worksheet. I'll click in cell D12, and I'll type the following formula. So I'll type an equal sign, and then in parentheses, D6, which is the number of visitors, times 10%. And again, that's the number of visitors I assume I'm losing and will need to replace. Then a right parentheses, then an asterisk for another multiplication, and I want to multiply by the value on the Acquisition Cost worksheet. So I'll click the Acquisition Cost Sheet tab, and you see that I have my formula started up here. I'll click cell B1, so everything is good. I'll press Enter, and I get my value. So if I lose 10% of my visitors, that is the amount that I will need to spend to replace them. Now let's assume that there is a lower cost per visitor. In other words, it doesn't cost me as much to replace any visitors that I lose. I can calculate my new estimate based on 10% loss by clicking in cell D15, where I want to create the formula, type an equal sign, and then I'll start out the same way I did before. So I'll type a left parentheses, and then I'll have D6 times 10%, followed by another parentheses, then an asterisk. And in this case, the parentheses aren't strictly necessary because we're using multiplication all the way across. I just do that for my own sake so that I can tell that those values are being grouped together, that I am calculating 10% of the value in D6 rather than in some other order. So I have my asterisk, and now I need to identify the other cell that I want to include in the formula. That is in the External workbook, so I'll press Alt-Tab to reach it. Now I will click cell B1 in that other workbook, and you see my reference there. I have External, the workbook name is in square brackets, and then Acquisition Cost, and cell B1. And when I press Enter, I go back to my previous workbook, and I see the lower cost per visitor. So far, I have shown you how to create a formula just by typing directly in the cell, but there are a couple of other ways. The first is that you can go to the Formulas tab. So if you go to the Formulas tab, you see the Function Library group, and if you want to create a formula through here by adding a function, you can select a function. For example, if I click More Functions and point to Statistical, then I can take an average, I can do all kinds of other calculations based on statistical knowledge, or I could just do standard mathematics, and so on. The final way to create a new function is to use the Insert Function dialog box, and you can reach that in two different places. We're on the Formulas tab, so I'll point out the Insert Function button here, but that's only visible when you're on the Formulas tab. If you want to use the Insert Function dialog box from anywhere, it is to the left of the formula bar here, and that's the Insert Function button, or the f of x button. When you click that, you get the Insert Function dialog box, and from here, you can select a category, or you can type a description of what you want to do. Then select your function from the list of functions. I'm on Math and Trig right now, so I'll switch to Statistical and click Average, and click OK. That gives me the Function Arguments dialog box, and you also see that we've started to enter the formula here. So I can enter in the function arguments that I want, and when I'm done, I can click OK, although in this case, I'll just go ahead and click Cancel. Regardless of how you choose to enter your formula, you will find that Excel has several ways to make the process easier for you.